If you guys want to make Unity games, then you're in the right place. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to make games in Unity. So first thing you want to do is go to your browser and go to unity.com/download and download Unity Hub, which is like a software that lets you create Unity games and access different versions of Unity. Once you've got that software, it should look like this, and it might make you sign in, so you should probably do that. Then you can go to installs and get the latest version of Unity, which is Unity 6, which is the one I'm going to be using in this tutorial. Now let's go to projects and create a new project. We're going to be creating a Universal 3D project and calling it tutorial 1, and we're going to turn that off. We don't need that, and create project. Once your Unity is open, it should look something like this. You've got your scene right here. Well, this isn't actually your scene. This is your game view right here. So this is what the user would see when they load up your game. This up here is your scene view. This is where usually you make your game. You can zoom around in things and edit things. Package Manager is where you can get things from the Unity asset store. So different like models or like UI things or animations, you can get them here if you want to. Some of them are paid, some of them are free. This right here is your hierarchy. It's basically telling you all of the things that are in your game right now. Down here we've got the project view right here. It's basically just a file explorer for your game. So we've got different folders here of different things, and this is typically where you would store models and things that you might want to take out into the game when you need them. Animation's pretty straightforward. You animate stuff, and the console is where you'll get logs and errors from your game. The inspector tool right here is used for a lot of things, so when you select something, you can do things to them with the inspector tool. To get started now, we're going to create a cube in our game. So we're going to go right click here in your hierarchy and then press 3D object, and then we're going to put cube. And as you guys can see, that puts a cube down in our game. And you guys can see there's an asterisk here, which means we haven't saved yet. So let's press Ctrl S and save. Now if we go in our game view, we don't see anything because our camera is right here, so we can select that in our hierarchy. And you guys can see we got this pretty big view. You've also got a directional light right here and a global volume. You don't need to pay much attention to these right now. All you need to do is look at this cube and look in the inspector. Here you guys can see many different things, but let's go through them one at a time. So first we've got transform, which is basically where it is in the world, how it's rotated, and how like big or small it is on the scale, right? So we can set these to 0, or you can just right click and reset them, right? So now this is right here in front of our camera. So let's save and look at our game view, and as you guys can see, we can see the cube. Now I've got different things here for the camera, as you guys can see. Let's go back to cube, and you guys can see we've got a box collider. Now we're going to be talking about this later, but basically this is when your box or your item, your model, right, your thing, it hits another thing. So we use colliders so they actually don't go through each other. Also, if we press play right up here, it'll send us into the game view and we can actually play. Since we haven't added really much to our game yet, nothing's gonna happen, and it's the same thing as before, just a cube. We can pause our game as well, so we're just gonna stop it right now. Now this cube, we can call it a different name. We can call it player right up here, so now it's a player, and then we can actually pull it down into our project, and this creates an asset out of it, and we can take this and we can do a lot of cool things with it. So for one, right here in our assets, we can right click and create a material, and we're going to call this player material, or just player mat. And then right here in our inspector, with it selected, we can change the base map, click here and set it to a different color. Let's call it red, or let's set it to red. Now this we can actually put on our player, and if you double click that, it sends us into this own view of just our model. Let's go back with this little arrow right here, and as you guys can see, this is red now. And since this is an asset because we pulled it down, we can put multiple into our game. So that's just a little bit of something you can do. Now I'm going to delete these by just pressing delete on them and saving. Now we've got this bright red cube in our game, and let's put a floor down. So we're gonna go right click 3D object and go to plane. Now the plane's all the way over there, so we're gonna reset its transform, and let's bring it down a little. Now this has a mesh collider and this has a box collider, so when we play our game, you might think that the cube might fall down and hit the thing, but we haven't actually added gravity yet, so nothing will happen, nothing is moving. However, on our player right here, we can add another component. And just so you guys know, if it wasn't obvious yet, all of these things right here in your part inspector our components, and we can add a lot more. So we can add a rigid body component, not rigid body 2D. This is for if you're coding a 2D game. So we're gonna put a normal rigid body, and you guys might not know what this does because you haven't used Unity yet, but this basically will just add gravity to our item. Now there's a lot of different things you can mess with here. You don't really need to do that right now. All you need to know is that this item now has gravity thanks to this component, and if we press play, it should just hit the floor. Now the reason that it won't go through the floor is because this has a mesh collider. So if we press run, we're gonna see it's gonna hit the floor, and then in our game, right, while it's running, we can actually go to our plane and turn off the mesh collider and see it go through the floor. And also when we can go to scene view while our game is running, and we can actually go down to our player, press F to teleport to it. You guys can see that we're actually in the game right now in our scene view while it's playing. So I pressed F again to teleport to my cube. Alright guys, I think that's a lot for this tutorial. I'll probably add some more for the next tutorial, but right before we end, I need to show you guys something. This player right here, you guys can see that it's blue, and this one's not blue, which is because this one we've turned into an asset. Down here, we haven't turned plane into an asset, which is going to be our ground. But also another thing, recently we added the rigid body, but the thing is we added it to this player right here, which is an instance of this asset down here. But since we've added it to this one, that does not mean this one has it. So if we check down here by clicking on this one, you'll see it only has a box collider. If you don't understand what I'm trying to say, I'm basically saying, since this is basically we copied this and added it to our game, and then we added a rigid body to this one, but not the main one down here. So this one doesn't have it. So if you put another one down, you'll see this one does not have it, as it's copying directly from this one. So these two are not the same, even though they both originally came from this asset right here. Alright guys, I think that's enough for today. Adios.